Hello YouTube, this is Magnolia Mo, and today we are going to cover some tips around setting up your Audyssey microphone and tips around how to correctly position the Audyssey mic when it comes to Audyssey calibration, sound calibration. Um, as all of you are aware, uh, Audyssey you can use up to 8 positions when you're running the Audyssey software, either on your processor, your preamp, your receiver, or if you are using the Audyssey MultEQ editor app, which I happen to use all the time instead of just running it off of the receiver. Okay, let's get started. As I had mentioned, I use the Audyssey MultEQ editor app. You see the app on my iPad here with all the various curves that I've stored in here. First thing we're going to do is create a new curve, select the AV8805, which I have connected, and then once that's done, that is what's going to pop up on your screen. You know, I've said this before, I'm very OCD, so what I've done is I've actually positioned the mic, directly in front, or centered with my center speaker. And then the first setting, obviously, as you know, and you guys all know, is your primary listening position, right? Now I do have one, two, three, four, five, and then these two are just whatever, right? So the main position, seating area is this right here, 4 feet, four seats, right? So Audyssey, if you when I'm going to flip to that screen, you're going to see it wants you to measure. You can measure up to 8 positions if you want the best curve possible, right? Um, and literally it does not mean that, right? It does not mean you have to set the microphone or this mic, sorry, at position 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So by doing that, you're actually expanding the area, right, where it's going to get its reading. If you, for it to work correctly, for Audyssey to work correctly and more accurately, they want you to move from one position to the next no more than 2 feet. For this particular process, you you will need, obviously, a tripod where to put the mic on, and then you need a trusted measuring tape measure, along with, obviously, you can have an iPad, or you can run this on your uh, on your on your iPhone as well. So, or iPhone, or your Android based phone. So now that we have the mic set up on a tripod, the next step is obviously, to start your Audyssey and have it run through all of the speakers, right? So before you do that, just want to make sure that it is placed directly in front, centered with the center channel, right? Because this is your primary listening position. So this is where the mic goes. Now the rest of the positions don't have to be where somebody actually sits. They have to be 60 centimeters or 24 inches from the main listening position. So 24 inches means the next position would be here. 24 inches means the next position is going to be over here. Here, right here, not here, here. Because if you expand it beyond that, then Audyssey is not going to work. And then from from the main listening position, you got your 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth position will be right about here, right? So not right here. So not directly in front of the second position, but diagonal. So that is how you need to set it up. So once we go through, I'm going to go through and start the calibration using position 1, and then I'm going to move the mic to position 2, then to 3, and then when we get to position 4, I'm going to come back and show you how to place the tripod appropriately. All right, now that we're done with 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to now place the mic in for listening position number 5, right? 4 I already took, which was right in front. So the listening position 4 would have been right here, right? Because that's 4, that's 24 inches from the from the main listening position. And then when you go to 5, this is the key right here, is you actually measure this part, and see right now I'm too far ahead, so I'm going to pull it back a little bit, and that's 24 inches from where we were. Then obviously then you have to adjust the tripod to make sure it is pointing up, and when it's pointing up, that's essentially your listening position number 5. So keep in mind, 4 was position 2 was here. This is not in front, this is not where somebody sits. It's actually the area that you're measuring is within 24 inches of your primary listening position. And then same thing for the last spots, number 7, the mic would be right here, and then number 8, the mic would be over here. So that's how you you set up your mic, and that's how you space it so that Audyssey can get the right measurements. And once all of this is done, I'm gonna come back and then show you how to go through the different settings within the multi within the Audyssey multi uh, app, the editor app that's available for our iPhones and for our Android devices.
Okay. All right. So now that we've actually ran through all of the measurements, right, from all of our 8 positions, we now have our curve, right? So I've saved all my curves right here, so you can see the most recent one is the 9/15/2022 curve. So we're going to go ahead and select that and wait for it to load. Okay, so now once you have the Audyssey MultEQ editor app open, and you have the curve open, you'll see all these other additional options: speaker detection results, room correction results, target sound options, mid-range compensation, curve editor, MultEQ filter, frequency range, and Audyssey settings. The first thing I do is I actually go into speaker detection results to validate how good of a job Audyssey has done. Now, as you guys are aware, I have the Bowers and Wilkins custom theater line, right? So it's the CT 7.4 speakers. I have 5 of them, and then I have 2 B&W 685s for my rears. I have 2 SVS sound subs, SB16 Ultra and SB13. And then I have, I'm sorry, SB3000, not 13, SB3000. And then I have 4 Atmos speakers. Those are the CCM 663s. So as you can see right here, Audyssey, obviously it set up all my speakers just small, which is fine. But then the crossovers, I don't agree with the 40 hertz for my front, center, and surround, and even my surround backs. Actually, I don't agree with any of these crossovers, right? So we're gonna go ahead and change them to 60 for the CT7.4s, because they are rated down to about 50 hertz, 49 hertz or so from a bass perspective. So I actually prefer setting those at a 60 hertz crossover, and then the surround back ones, I the 685s, I cross them over at 80, and then the CCM 663s, I actually go a little higher and cross them over at 100 hertz, right? And I'll show you why I do that once I get to those and get to the frequency response. Now, the next screen here is the speaker detection results. These are pretty spot on, right? So the distances, from the main listening position, and then the levels, I believe are fairly accurate here. As I've run through other Audyssey settings, I'm familiar with where Audyssey lands. Usually it's about -6 for the front left and right, -6.5 or 7, right? So it's right in that range, and then the center is right about there. I do actually like to bump up the center by a couple dBs. I'm not going to touch that right now because I don't want to you know mess up what I'm going to send to the receiver. I'll adjust that in the actual processor. So on the app, I keep what I have so that I have the default stored right here. And then for my subwoofers, the SB16 Ultra and the SB3000 -2.5 and -1 is where typically I end up, from a level perspective. But I will, use an SPL meter and validate those levels. So that's the speaker detection. Now let's go over to the room correction. Room correction. This is my left speaker. I have this this dip. It's a null in essence, but at that 90 hertz frequency, and I don't know, can't figure out what it is in the room. It could be just the room itself. It could be the couches. I always, doesn't matter where I place the speakers, I always get that bit of a dip there. But so on the left, the green chart is the non-calibrated, just straight readings for my left CT 7.4, and then on the right, the red curve is the post after calibration, and you can see Audyssey does a great job. Now, from it essentially balances out all of the peaks, right, at different frequencies that you get, right. So, for instance, before calibration, if I look at my 1 kilohertz range, it was at about -dB, right? So Audyssey leveled that off so that frequency, along with all of the frequencies, all the way to about 40 to about 20, 30, 40, 50 hertz, right, is pretty much straight and pretty much well balanced, right. The volume level of each of those frequencies is the same. You do see that roll off right after, I want to say, between 40 and 30 hertz. It just falls off completely post calibration. And that's generous in my opinion. I mean, like I said, the speakers are rated at 49 hertz, for plus minus 3 dB. So I would say, from a Audyssey perspective, if you're watching this, the frequency response is pretty flat up until 50 hertz, and then it drops off. So I'm okay with that, with this overall response. So that's the left speaker. The right speaker, again, before calibration is all over the place. Post calibration, you still see that null, that dip between the 90 and 100 hertz range. And then the center speaker, the center speaker doesn't have it. So that does tell me, I mean, it does actually. I take that back. Center speaker is pretty bad. It's not as pronounced as the left and right, right? So it's correctable, but there is still that null there. And you could see Audyssey was able to correct that because it was just a 5 dB, drop essentially at that frequency for the center speaker. Then the left, same thing. I've added, room acoustics. I've moved furniture around. It just doesn't seem to get rid of that 90 to 100 hertz null that I have in my room. And then surround right, surround back left, surround back right, and then my top, front, and left. Um, so you can see the Atmos speakers. This is why I crossed them over at 100, because it's fine. You know, they play down to, I want to say, about 60 hertz or so, and then it just starts to there's a steep fall off. But just to be safe, you know, I just cross them over at 100 because of this response, you know, that I'm seeing on the Audyssey app here. And same scenario with all of the top speakers. Then for the subwoofer, this is where I have the most amount of fun. Again, is seeing you know, before calibration and after calibration, right? So I've, in my opinion, you know, moved my subs around. I've found the right spot, you know, for both of them. And two subs, I've done a video already on this. Two subs do help even out the overall frequency response in the room. So you can see it's post calibration. Audyssey was able to pretty much give me, you know, give me a ruler flat you know, setting for my subwoofer. So that's your room correction results. The target sound options, you know, I go with the high frequency roll off option 2, which is on the right side here, because it's more of an even gradual roll off as opposed to the steep roll off that you see on the left. And you will hear the difference. And then I don't do anything with mid-range compensation, because all of these speakers are tweeter based, and you do need to apply the mid-range compensation there. I mean, when I used to have Martin Logan electrostatic speakers with, you know, because it's an electrostatic speaker, there is no tweeter, there is no crossover between the tweeter and the mid-range. I did not need to use that mid-range compensation because there is no crossover. It was just straight one, you know, speaker, one panel that's producing that sound. Uh, so there's more to that mid-range compensation than what I just mentioned. But you know, for normal driver-based speakers, you know, I would keep the mid-range compensation turned on to avoid distortion. You know, in your mid range, and you're bleeding over to your tweeter. The curve editor here, you can actually choose. You know, I can pick a frequency and essentially bump up that frequency by a few dBs, right? I don't mess with it. I leave it the way it is, uh, because, in my opinion, it's better to just, you know, because you're actually raising all the other frequencies, not just that one frequency. It's having an effect on the entire curve. So from, I'm not that big of an expert in this, so I just leave that the way it is. Um, the frequency range. So here, this is also very useful. The filter frequency range, you can choose to apply your Audyssey curve to you know, to a specific range, right? So a lot of folks, you know, like to apply Audyssey to, you know, to lower frequencies, because this is where you can get a lot of peaks and nulls and things like that, and Audyssey does a good job. Like if your overall you know, mid range and high frequencies, you know, if your speakers generally you know, not producing you know, lots of variations, you know, from a frequency standpoint, then folks just tend to just leave that alone, because Audyssey does seem to roll off high frequencies. So a lot of folks that I read online, you know, what they would like to do, they like to do is apply maybe like 100 hertz and below type of a set, you know, frequency range, where Audyssey is actually doing its thing. So I don't, again, I just let it all go. I just let Audyssey do the whole thing. And then Audyssey settings, you have dynamic EQ, dynamic volume, and low frequency compensation. I don't do anything with dynamic volume and low frequency compensation. I do use dynamic EQ because I sometimes, you know, actually most of the time I'm watching, you know, when I'm watching a movie or when I'm watching TV, Apple TV and stuff like that. I'm not, it's at late at night. I don't want to bother, my family members. So I leave that setting on. But on movie nights, when we're watching a movie, I will turn off the dynamic EQ and then just go with, with pure sound. So that, in a nutshell, guys, was how I use Audyssey, or and how I use, how I set up the Audyssey mic and place the mic, in the individual positions to get the most out of my system. I hope you guys like this video. Again, if you like videos such as this, go ahead, subscribe, and I look forward to speaking to you and sharing, some of my other experiences and some additional tips in the weeks to come. Thank you.